She had nothing but the clothes on her back and the dreams she refused to let die. When she fell asleep in front of a luxurious hotel, she had no idea that the man who would wake her up would change everything, but not out of pity, out of something much deeper. And what they would discover about each other would leave them both in tears. The sun had barely risen over the sleepy town of Pine Hollow when Emily curled herself tighter under the threadbare blanket she had found in a trash bin 3 nights before. Her back pressed against the cold stone steps of the luxurious Wyndham Grand Hotel, a place that might as well have been another planet to her. She wasn't supposed to be here, at least not this close to so much wealth. But hunger and exhaustion had a way of silencing shame. Emily hadn't always lived like this. Just a year ago, she shared a tiny apartment with her mother and younger brother, juggling 3 part-time jobs to help keep food on the table. But after her mother passed unexpectedly from a stroke, everything unraveled. The landlord kicked them out within a month. Her brother was taken in by a distant aunt in another state. Emily, with no degree, no savings, and no one else to turn to, fell through the cracks. She tried shelters, she begged for odd jobs, she even offered to sweep diners in exchange for leftovers. But nothing lasted. Her kindness was often mistaken for weakness, and people either used her or turned her away. She quickly learned that being invisible was better than being judged. The hotel had become her strange kind of sanctuary. She didn't try to sneak in or ask for help, just slept near the doors where the outdoor heaters warmed the steps slightly. The doorman usually ignored her or, on good days, left her alone with a shake of the head. She never caused trouble. She didn't even ask for anything. That morning, her body ached with cold. Her fingertips were numb, and her stomach gnawed at itself. She kept her eyes closed tightly, pretending she was somewhere else. Maybe back in her childhood bedroom, when things were still safe. Maybe her mom would walk in with hot tea and a soft voice. Maybe her little brother would giggle about cartoons. But real life had no mercy. A sharp voice cut through her dream. "Excuse me, hey." She flinched, heart racing, thinking it was hotel security come to kick her off the property. But when she opened her eyes, what she saw was a tall man in a tailored navy coat, with piercing green eyes that didn't match the coldness of his voice. He looked at her not with disgust, but confusion, almost concern. "Are you okay?" he asked, though his tone hinted he wasn't used to asking questions like that. Emily sat up slowly, pushing her tangled hair behind her ear. She nodded too quickly, instinctively trying to make herself smaller. "I'm sorry, I was just resting. I'll go," she murmured, already gathering the worn blanket. The man didn't move. His eyes studied her, really studied her. Something about her face made him pause. There was nothing special about her appearance. She was pale, underweight, with dirt smudged on her cheek. But her eyes were fierce, tired, but fierce. The kind of eyes that had seen too much and still hoped for something more. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world around them continued. Cars passing, people entering the hotel with suitcases, bellboys shouting greetings. But it all faded into background noise. It was just him and her, and something was about to shift. That night had been the coldest of the month. A bitter wind howled through the streets of Pine Hollow, cutting through coats and scarves like knives. For Emily, with nothing more than a worn hoodie and that thin blanket, it felt like the sky itself was punishing her for something she didn't remember doing. She had tried to sleep earlier, curling into a tight ball on the stone steps of the hotel entrance, but the cold wouldn't let her. Her fingers throbbed, her lips were cracked, and each breath came out in little puffs of white. She bit down on her trembling lip to keep from crying, afraid the sound might draw attention. Invisibility had become her shield. It was better to be ignored than pitied, or worse, mocked. The ground beneath her was hard, and every bone in her body ached. Her left ankle still hurt from when she tripped 2 nights ago, running from a drunk man who had followed her from a gas station. Her ribs felt bruised from coughing. Still, she clung to the one thing that hadn't been stolen from her: hope. She told herself, "Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow someone will see me. Tomorrow I'll get lucky." She had no idea that tomorrow had already begun, and that it would be unlike any other. Throughout the night, she'd watch the hotel's glowing windows from a distance, imagining the lives of the people inside. Warm beds, hot food, laughter, music, everything she hadn't felt in months. Once she dreamed of working in a place like that, even cleaning floors or washing dishes, but now even dreams felt expensive. Around 3 a.m., a bellhop came outside for a smoke. He glanced at her but said nothing. She kept her head down. He tossed his cigarette and went back inside. She'd gotten lucky. Some staff weren't so indifferent. By 4:30 a.m., the frost on the pavement made it hard for her to move. Her body had grown stiff. She tried to stretch her legs and whispered a prayer she hadn't said since her mother's funeral. "Lord, please don't let me die out here." Then, just as the first glow of dawn began to tint the horizon, she closed her eyes again. It was only for a moment, just to rest, just until the sun came up. That was the moment he saw her. From across the street, Nicholas Camden had arrived early for a surprise inspection of his own hotel. It was something he rarely did, but something had told him to come unannounced this morning. The boardroom could wait. He wanted to see things as they really were. As his driver parked discreetly on the side of the building, Nicholas stepped out, adjusting the cuffs of his overcoat. The world around him was still half asleep, quiet, clean, cold. That's when his eyes fell on a form curled on the steps. At first he assumed it was just a pile of trash or discarded clothing, but then the blanket shifted and a fragile face peeked out. He froze. She looked like a ghost. Nicholas had seen many homeless people before. He gave to shelters, hosted charity galas, even spoke about poverty at functions. But this was different. She was right there, on his doorstep, on the steps of his hotel, like a silent accusation. He didn't call security, he didn't walk past her like he normally would have. Something stopped him, and in that quiet moment before the world truly woke up, he stepped forward and asked the question that would unravel everything. "Are you okay?" Emily blinked several times, trying to focus on the man standing above her. Her mind was still foggy from the cold, and her body sluggish from hunger. She wasn't used to being spoken to gently, especially not by men in $1,000 coats. For a split second, she wondered if she was still dreaming. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, voice hoarse. "I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I'll leave." But the man didn't step back. Instead, he knelt slightly, his brow furrowed in thought. He seemed hesitant, like someone used to making fast decisions, who had suddenly found himself unsure. "You don't look okay," he said. "How long have you been out here?" She hesitated. The truth was embarrassing. "A couple nights." His eyes scanned her face. There was a cautious grace about her, like someone who had learned to protect her dignity at all costs. Nicholas wasn't sure why, but something about her voice, her stillness, tugged at something buried deep inside him. A memory, a face, something he couldn't quite name. "Come inside," he said, almost impulsively. "It's warm. We have coffee." Emily's eyes widened. "Inside, the hotel." He nodded. "You can warm up, take a shower, eat something. I'll tell the front desk." Emily's instinct was to refuse. People didn't just offer things like that, not without strings attached. She'd seen enough cruelty disguised as kindness. But her stomach growled loud enough to humiliate her, and the sting of the wind on her face reminded her how little choice she had. She stood slowly, unsteady on her feet. Nicholas noticed how she winced when she shifted her weight. "Are you injured?" "I'm fine," she lied. He didn't press. He simply turned and led her toward the glass doors, where the lobby glowed with golden light and smelled of fresh flowers and roasted coffee. Emily followed at a distance, her heart pounding with fear and disbelief. Inside, the staff froze. The receptionist, Marcy, widened her eyes at the sight of Emily stepping over the threshold. Nicholas gave her a nod. "Give her access to a private room, full service, no questions." Marcy hesitated. "Mr. Camden, are you sure?" "Positive." Emily kept her eyes down. She felt everyone staring, judging. She wasn't supposed to be here. The marble floors beneath her torn shoes, the chandeliers overhead. None of it belonged to her world. But for some reason, this man had opened a door she never imagined would even exist for someone like her. As they entered the elevator, silence filled the space between them. Emily could feel him watching her, but it didn't feel threatening, just curious, as if he was trying to solve a puzzle. Finally, he spoke. "What's your name?" She looked up at him for the first time. Her voice was soft, but steady. "Emily." Nicholas nodded slowly. "I'm Nicholas." The name hit her like a wave. She had heard that name before, from a news article, from her mother's lips, but she said nothing. For now. The elevator doors opened, and a path neither of them expected had just begun. The suite was larger than any apartment Emily had ever seen. Cream-colored walls, velvet curtains, and a king-sized bed that looked softer than clouds. As the bellhop discreetly exited, Nicholas stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the sunrise with a contemplative silence that made the room feel heavier. Emily stood awkwardly by the door, still clutching her blanket like a shield. She hadn't even sat down. Her instincts screamed caution. Kindness like this didn't come for free. "You can take a shower," Nicholas said, breaking the silence. "There are clean towels and I'll have someone bring up clothes and food." Emily gave a tight nod, her eyes never fully meeting his. "Why are you doing this?" He turned slowly to face her. For a man who commanded boardrooms and brokered million-dollar deals, Nicholas Camden looked unsure. "I don't know," he admitted. "You were there, sleeping at my door, and something about you. It didn't feel right to ignore it." She stared at him for a moment, trying to read the truth in his face. Was it guilt? Was he trying to ease his conscience by helping a stranger? Was it pity? "You don't have to feel sorry for me," she said sharply, surprising even herself. Nicholas raised an eyebrow. "I don't." His answer was calm, but firm. Still, Emily wasn't convinced. She had been looked down on too many times, and even when someone meant well, the pity in their eyes made her feel smaller than she already felt. "I'm not some stray you can rescue to feel better about yourself," she added. Something shifted in Nicholas's expression. Perhaps respect, perhaps intrigue. "I didn't say you were, but you looked like you needed help. That's all." Emily's pride wanted her to walk out right then, but her body was too weak. Her stomach burned with hunger, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee drifting in from the hallway nearly made her knees buckle. "I'll shower," she muttered, finally stepping further into the room. As she disappeared into the bathroom, Nicholas remained still, staring at the door after it closed. He hadn't told her everything, not even close. The truth was, when he first saw her curled up on the steps, it wasn't just compassion that struck him. It was recognition. Her eyes, they reminded him of someone he once knew long ago. Someone he had failed. Someone whose absence still haunted him. Meanwhile, inside the bathroom, Emily stood under the stream of warm water for what felt like hours. Dirt and sorrow washed off her skin, but not the weight of the past. She stared at herself in the mirror, unfamiliar with the reflection. The bruises, the hollow cheeks. Was this really who she had become? And yet something about Nicholas's voice had shaken her. He didn't sound like the others. He didn't ask about her past or question her motives. He simply offered help, strange, but genuine. Still, she couldn't let herself trust him. Not yet. When she emerged from the bathroom in a soft robe, a tray of food waited by the window. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, and fresh fruit. She sat carefully, eating slowly at first, until her hunger took over. Nicholas had stepped out, but she knew he'd be back. And when he returned, she would be ready. What she didn't know was that outside the room, the staff were already whispering. The girl from the street had been brought into the Wyndham Grand's most luxurious suite by Mr. Camden himself, and gossip spreads faster than truth, but Emily had no time for that. She was about to unknowingly unlock doors in Nicholas's heart that had been shut for decades. When Nicholas returned to the suite later that morning, Emily was sitting by the window, holding a cup of tea in both hands. She looked different, cleaner, calmer, but her eyes still held that same guarded light. He noticed how she sat with her back straight, like someone who refused to get too comfortable. He placed a small envelope on the table beside her and took a seat across the room, giving her space. "What's that?" she asked, without touching it. "Some money," he replied. "Enough to buy a coat, maybe a bus ticket, whatever you need." Emily stared at the envelope like it was a snake. "I don't want charity." "It's not charity," Nicholas said simply. "It's a choice. You can take it and walk away, or—" He paused, measuring his words. "Or you can stay. I need someone for a temporary position in the hotel, something small, laundry service. It's not glamorous, but it pays." Her eyes narrowed. "Why me?" "Because you're here. And something tells me you'd show up on time, work hard, and be grateful for the chance." Emily's heart pounded. The offer sounded like a dream, but dreams often came with traps. Still, part of her ached to believe him. A real job, a place to sleep, a warm meal that didn't depend on luck or the kindness of strangers. She glanced at the envelope again. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Nicholas said, "but you have to decide now. I don't do long negotiations." His tone wasn't harsh. It was just how he was used to speaking, firm, final. But Emily saw something else behind his eyes, a flicker of vulnerability, almost like he was hoping she would say yes, even if he didn't understand why. She looked down at her hands, still trembling slightly. "Okay," she whispered. Nicholas nodded once. "I'll speak to the head of housekeeping." As he stood and prepared to leave, Emily asked softly, "Why are you really doing this?" He paused at the door. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "Maybe because I once wished someone had done the same for someone I knew." And with that, he was gone. Emily exhaled deeply, the first real breath she'd taken in days. She had no idea what the future held, but this was more than survival. This was a chance. Within hours, she was dressed in a modest staff uniform and taken through the service corridors of the hotel by Mrs. Granger, the stern but fair housekeeping manager. Most of the staff kept their distance, shooting her curious glances. She felt the weight of their stares but kept her head down. She changed sheets, she folded towels, she cleaned rooms without complaint. Her fingers were raw by the end of her shift, but her heart beat with something close to pride. That night she was given a small staff room in the basement. Nothing compared to the suite, but it had a bed, a door, and a key. It was hers. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, Emily felt the tears come. Not from sadness, but from the quiet, unfamiliar hum of hope. She whispered into the silence, "Thank you, God, I won't waste this." But upstairs, in his private office, Nicholas was having a harder time finding peace, because something about Emily's eyes still haunted him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that their stories were more connected than either of them knew. The days passed quietly. Emily kept her head down, worked hard, and spoke little. Her hands moved with care over every surface she cleaned, and though her uniform didn't fit quite right, she wore it with a quiet pride. For the first time in months, she had a purpose, a rhythm. But at night, when the hotel hushed into silence and the world outside slipped into sleep, her past clawed its way back in. She often sat alone in the tiny break room, sipping tea and staring at the floor tiles. One evening, Mrs. Granger, who had grown quietly fond of Emily, sat beside her with 2 mugs of cocoa. The older woman didn't ask questions at first. She simply waited. Eventually, Emily spoke. "I used to take care of my brother," she said softly. "David. He's 12 now. Sweetest kid you'd ever meet. Loved puzzles and grilled cheese sandwiches." Mrs. Granger listened in silence. "Our mom was a nurse. She worked double shifts. She did everything she could. But when she died," Emily's voice cracked. "Everything just collapsed." Her hands trembled slightly as she continued. "We had no savings, no family close by. The landlord gave us 2 weeks. After that, I couldn't find work fast enough. David went to live with an aunt in Ohio. I haven't seen him in almost a year." Mrs. Granger reached over and gently touched Emily's hand. "Have you tried contacting him?" Emily shook her head. She said it was better that way, that he needed stability. I couldn't even argue. I didn't have a roof to offer. Her eyes welled with tears she refused to let fall. I've never felt more useless in my life. At that very moment, in his penthouse suite, Nicholas Camden stared at a photograph he kept locked in his desk drawer. It was old and faded, showing a young girl with dark curls and bright eyes, standing beside a woman who looked almost identical to Emily. The photo was dated. He hadn't looked at it in years. He took a sip of scotch and leaned back, letting memories flood in. Memories of a love he'd lost long ago. A woman named Laura, the first and only woman who'd ever made him consider a future beyond boardrooms and investments. But she had vanished from his life in tragedy, and with her, a part of him had closed off for good, until now. That same week, Nicholas ran into Emily in the hallway unexpectedly. She lowered her gaze, but he stopped her. "You're doing well," he said, surprising her. "Thank you," she replied. "I'm trying." Then he asked something that made her throat tighten. "Do you have any family?" She hesitated. "A little brother. He's with someone else now. I couldn't take care of him." Nicholas noticed how her voice faltered, how her eyes flickered with guilt, the kind he knew too well. He thought of asking more, but something told him not yet. Not today. That night, Emily cried quietly into her pillow, not from sadness, but from the aching weight of love she couldn't protect. And Nicholas drank alone, haunted by a face he thought he had buried with time. Neither of them realized how close their worlds truly were, because the truth was about to come crashing in. The following week brought small changes that, to any other hotel employee, would have gone unnoticed. But for Emily, every detail felt immense, like the way Mrs. Granger now smiled when handing her the room list, or how the morning shift security guard started offering her coffee without charging. But what surprised her the most was Nicholas. He didn't treat her like just another employee, nor like some charity case. He greeted her, asked if she was settling in. Sometimes he even made subtle jokes, the kind only those familiar with silence knew how to appreciate. One afternoon, while she was organizing towels in the supply room, he showed up unexpectedly. "Can you take a break?" he asked, in that direct tone of his, but without harshness. Emily hesitated. "I still have 2 carts left." "I cleared it with Granger," he interrupted, holding out a cup of apple juice. "You looked pale this morning." She took the cup, surprised. "You noticed?" "I notice more than people think," he said, taking a seat on a chair against the wall. She sat down too, uneasy at first, but something in her no longer felt afraid of him. Just curious. He looked at her for a moment, thoughtful. "You remind me of someone. From a long time ago." Emily gripped the cup tighter. "Someone you lost?" Nicholas nodded slowly. "She left, and I never found out why. I tried, but life moved on." Emily wanted to ask more, but thought better of it. The pain in his voice was too clear. "Sometimes we don't leave because we want to," she said quietly. "Sometimes the world decides for us." He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. There was a connection there, something beyond ordinary empathy. The next day, she found a small bag in her locker. Inside, a new pair of shoes. A simple note, unsigned. Thought these might be more comfortable. She didn't need to ask who it was from. That same night, Nicholas looked up the employee registry and requested a piece of information. Quietly, he asked one of his contacts to run a background check. Emily Rhodes. Meanwhile, Emily began writing letters to her brother, even without an address to send them to. Just to keep the promise alive. "I'll find you again. Just wait for me." The walls between her and Nicholas were beginning to crumble, not through words, but through gestures, through shared silences, through glances that spoke what neither of them yet knew how to admit. But in the world of the rich and powerful, trust was dangerous ground. And at the Wyndham Grand Hotel, there were eyes everywhere. Weeks went by, and Emily's presence inside the Wyndham Grand was no longer a novelty. But not everyone welcomed her rise with kind eyes. The first whispers started in the staff hallways, spoken in low voices, yet just loud enough for her to hear. She was sleeping on the sidewalk last month, and now she's having private talks with Mr. Camden? I heard he gave her money. Probably more than just that, if you know what I mean. She's got him wrapped around her finger. Must be nice playing the damsel. Emily pretended not to hear. She had learned to survive by ignoring people's cruelty. But inside, every word cut like a knife. Mrs. Granger, who had begun treating her almost like a protege, tried to quiet the rumors. "People talk because they're miserable," she said, seeing Emily with her head down. "Let them talk, you know who you are." But Emily knew that in that world, reputation mattered more than truth. Nicholas, on the other hand, seemed unaware of the whispers. Or maybe he was just pretending nothing ever reached him. He kept showing up now and then, with the same poised coldness and subtle gestures of kindness. But even he began to feel the pressure. During a meeting with the board, one of the older members made a veiled remark. "I've heard interesting things about your recent involvement with the cleaning staff." Nicholas looked up, his expression icy. "If you're referring to Miss Rhodes, she's under my employment, and none of your concern." But the damage had been done. A seed had been planted, and he knew it. That same night, he went up alone to the top floor, staring at his own reflection in the window glass. He wondered why he cared so much, why he defended her, why she reminded him of the guilt he tried so hard to bury. Meanwhile, Emily returned to her small room in the hotel's basement, where she found a note slipped under the door. "People like you don't belong here. Don't get comfortable." She sat on the bed, the paper trembling in her hand. For a moment, she thought about giving up, about running away again. But something inside her had changed. She was no longer just a girl from the street. She was a survivor, and now she had something to protect, her place, her dignity, and maybe, though she didn't fully understand it yet, the heart of someone she never imagined she could reach. And as the rumors grew louder, the truth that bound Emily and Nicholas drew closer. Because the past wasn't buried. It was about to be unearthed, with force. The sky was gray that morning, and the air felt heavier than usual. Nicholas felt a restlessness he couldn't quite name. Ever since he had requested the background check on Emily, something inside his chest hadn't stopped tightening. When the envelope arrived, quiet, unassuming, he waited until he was alone to open it. And as he read the first few lines, the world around him seemed to stop. Emily Rose Rhodes, daughter of Laura Elizabeth Rhodes. Nicholas let the paper fall slowly onto the desk. The old pain he had buried long ago burst inside his chest like a reopened wound. Laura. She had disappeared from his life more than 20 years ago, without a word. She had been young, full of ideals, and always said his world was suffocating. He hadn't known back then that she was pregnant. She never told him. She simply left. And now, right in front of him was the name of the daughter he never knew existed. Emily, his daughter. Nicholas stood up slowly, his mind spinning. It all made sense now. The eyes, the way she spoke, even the way she held pain in silence. Just like Laura used to. He didn't know whether to scream, to cry, or fall to his knees. Meanwhile, Emily was cleaning one of the upper floors when she was unexpectedly called up to the penthouse. She stepped into Nicholas's suite, her heart pounding. He stood facing the window and didn't turn around when she entered. "Is something wrong?" she asked cautiously. He remained silent for a few seconds, then spoke softly. "Your mother's name was Laura, wasn't it?" Emily froze. Her eyes widened. "How do you know that?" He finally turned around, and what she saw in his eyes wasn't anger or shock. It was pain. Pain and something deeper. Something she couldn't recognize right away. "I knew her. A long time ago. We were very close. I didn't know she had a daughter." Emily felt the floor vanish beneath her. "What are you saying?" He stepped closer. His voice trembled. "Emily, I think I'm your father." She stepped back as if she'd been punched in the chest. Why, what? That's not possible. My mother, she never said anything. She wouldn't, Nicholas said. She left suddenly. I never understood why. But the timing, the details. I had a background check done. I had to know. Emily, you're my daughter. The silence between them turned into something unbearably heavy. Emily slowly sat down on the couch, as if her body no longer belonged to her. You're saying all this time? He nodded. I didn't help you out of pity. I didn't know who you were. But now, everything changes. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them. She couldn't. Her whole life had been a search for belonging, and the answer had been standing in front of her all along. She wasn't just a girl from the street. She was the daughter of the man who owned the world. And now, she had to decide what to do with that truth. Emily didn't run. She didn't scream. She didn't deny it. But her silence was deafening. Nicholas stood there, unmoving, waiting for a reaction that didn't come right away. For so many years he had buried his pain, his regret, and now fate had placed him face to face with a daughter he never knew he had. A daughter who had once slept on the sidewalk of his own empire. She finally spoke, her voice hoarse with emotion. You think you're my father and you had to run a background check to find out? Nicholas swallowed hard. I didn't know any other way to confirm it. I needed to be sure. I was afraid to hope. She looked up, eyes still filled with tears but steady. All my life I thought I didn't matter, that I was just forgotten. And now I find out the man I've been working for is my father? Nicholas stepped closer, his voice trembling. You weren't forgotten. You were hidden from me. And I don't blame your mother. Maybe she thought she was protecting you. Maybe she was protecting me too. Emily closed her eyes, trying to hold back the tears. I used to pray someone would come find me. I stopped praying when I realized no one was coming. Nicholas knelt before her. A powerful man, owner of a hotel empire and multi-million-dollar investments, kneeling at the feet of a young woman with calloused hands. I'm here now, he said, voice both firm and broken. And if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life making up for lost time. She looked at him, and in that gaze was every childhood ache, every cold night, every time she had been ignored, but also the flicker of hope that had never quite died. After a long pause, she said, I don't need your money. I don't need a fancy title. I just want to know that I'm not invisible anymore. Nicholas nodded, eyes red with emotion. You're not. Never again. The news exploded throughout the hotel in the days that followed, first as a rumor, then as confirmed truth. The young woman many had dismissed was actually the heiress to the Wyndham Empire, the long-lost daughter of Nicholas Camden. Those who mocked her now flattered her. Those who judged her fell silent. But Emily didn't change. She kept working, now in a different role, learning the business, helping behind the scenes, earning respect not through her name, but through her heart. A month later, she visited her brother in Ohio. For the first time in nearly 2 years, she held him tight and whispered, We're a family again. You're coming home. And so the girl from the sidewalk was transformed, not into a fairy tale princess, but into a strong woman, scarred but unbreakable. Someone who had faced abandonment, cold and contempt, and won. Because fate, though late, has a way of closing its circles with justice, and love, even when lost, always finds its way back. And you, what would you do if the stranger who offered you kindness turned out to be the father you never knew? Did this story move you? Do you also believe that no one is ever in the wrong place by accident? Tell us in the comments. Do you believe in destiny or coincidence? Let's talk. Your words might inspire someone today. And if Emily's journey touched your heart, please consider sending a super thanks. Your financial support helps this channel reach more people with stories that bring hope, emotion, and reflection. Every little bit takes us further. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story like this one. Now go ahead and click the video showing on your screen. There's another powerful story waiting for you, and this one might just change your life too.